The church year is divided between the major feasts and seasons and what is called ordinary time. And today we return to celebrating the ordinary time of the church year with the 11th Sunday of ordinary time. Although we call it ordinary time, it's not in contrast to extraordinary time, but rather it comes from the Latin word ordo, which refers to the ordinal numbers by which the weeks are identified or counted, from the first week of ordinary time in January to the 34th week at the end of November. However, having said all that, this Sunday of ordinary time is anything but ordinary because of the two special events we are celebrating: Father's Day and World Refugee Sunday. And I think there's an amazing harmony between these events and what we have just heard in today's scripture readings. Let's begin by taking a closer look at these scripture readings. In today's first reading from the book of Exodus, the Lord speaks to Moses and offers a beautiful description of how God sees and cares for the people. Moses and the people are reminded of how God delivered them from Egypt. The Lord lifts them up on eagle's wings as a sign of God's tender nature, like a mother eagle teaching her young to fly by carrying them on her wing until they get the idea and the skill of flight. St. Paul, in our second reading, writing to the Romans, reminds us of God's radical love for us by sending Jesus to die for us while we're still sinners. It is a love that surpasses all understanding. And today's gospel begins with Jesus' heart moved with pity for the crowds because they were troubled and abandoned like sheep without a shepherd. The Greek word Matthew uses for moved with compassion, splanknistais, is the strongest word for pity in the Greek language. It's a strong word about a strong response. There's nothing subtle or uncertain about it. It means visceral. It means gut-wrenching. All these readings underscore the nature of God's love, a love that comes first, a love that is unconditional, a love that is life-giving. A love like the love we celebrate with the first of today's special events, a love like that of a father. At baptism, I remind parents that the sacrament we're celebrating with their child is just the beginning of the child's relationship with God, and that it will be up to them as parents, along with the support of godparents, grandparents, extended family, and friends, to nurture and deepen that child's relationship with God. They can do this by a variety of ways: reading them Bible stories, teaching them their prayers, bringing them for their other sacraments, sending them to a Catholic school or to faith formation classes. But I tell them before they do any of that, they're already doing the most important thing they can do in teaching their child about God, and that they love that child with a love like God's love, totally unconditional. I point out that their love is like God's love in that it is not predicated on anything the child has done, especially the little infants they're holding who haven't done any household chores yet, haven't done their schoolwork, haven't brought home any earnings. In other words, they love that child not because of what the child has done, but because of who the child is. A parent's love, a father's love, is like God's love. A love that comes first, a love that's unconditional, a love that is life-giving. A love like God in freeing the Israelites, like the Father in sending his Son even while we were sinners, like Jesus seeing the crowds without a shepherd. Now, wouldn't it be great if we could stop here and then go home and celebrate Father's Day? But no, there's more, much more, because we're also celebrating World Refugee Sunday. Could the readings that we've just heard be any more appropriate for this day also? Our ancestors in faith, the Israelites, were the original refugees, fleeing from persecution and death in Egypt. They were asked to place their trust in God, and they were rewarded for that trust. Refugees over the centuries and in our own day have to make that same leap of faith. In the gospel, Jesus, that we just heard, Jesus saw the multitudes and had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Could there be any more fitting description of refugees today than that? Sheep without a shepherd. Most of the 32 million refugees today live in refugee camps, which are supposed to be temporary facilities built to provide immediate protection and assistance to people who have been forced to flee their homes. The average length of stay, however, for a refugee in a camp is 17 years. 17 years. The United States passed the Refugee Act in 1980, and at the start, more than 200 refugees were admitted annually. Last year, the United States admitted only around 25,000. The 2020 census showed that for the first time in 70 years, Buffalo's population increased, largely as a result of refugees and immigrants. Since 2002, Buffalo has taken in around 16 refugees. That's only about 750 a year. And there are so many, many more who are looking for a home. Refugees have been defined as those who always eat at someone else's table, always sleep in another's place, those for whom there is no solitude, no privacy, who have no home but memories. What can we do? We can be the love of God for a refugee. We can choose to stand in solidarity with them, advocating for policies that provide greater protection and support. We can support the resettlement agencies. We can offer our time and our talents to help the most vulnerable of our neighbors. At St. Joe's, this has been done in very practical ways. Since 2019, the Bike Project has collected, refurbished, and distributed more than 850 bikes to refugees and immigrants in Western New York. Our St. Vincent de Paul Society has also been instrumental in setting up homes and apartments for newly arrived refugees. And for the past several years, we've also collected personal care items for asylum seekers who are living at Vive. Every one of us can do something. It is so appropriate that we are celebrating World Refugee Sunday and Father's Day on the same day. We are all God's family, and in a few minutes we will call God our Father. But we can only say that if we are willing to call each and every person, especially today, all refugees, our sisters and our brothers.